Hey folks, it's just Nation here from Nindie Spotlight. And I've been thinking about it for a while, but finally decided to post it. Some thoughts about the Switch OLED, if you've been considering it for yourself or if you're a parent considering getting it for your kids. Really, this is for if they already have a Switch. If they don't, Switch LED seems like the way to go. It seems like the new baseline model. And the price differential isn't that big from the regular one. So if you want to get the new hotness and you don't mind spending a little extra money for it, it seems like a good buy. This is really for people who already own a Switch and who are thinking about making a conversion. Um, just some thoughts about alternatives so that you can get some benefit in the short term for improving your handheld gaming without having to make the investment in Switch OLED if you don't have to. There are reasons to upgrade aside from these, but just some thoughts. Just for those who don't know, since this is getting not into my normal sphere of just covering indie games, just to give people a little background. Um, I've been covering Nintendo systems since the N64 era. I worked as a staff writer on N64 HQ, then went on to start a site called the 64 Source, another one called Operation 2000. Then I dropped out for approximately uh, 18 years, and then with the Switch, I started up a new site called Nindie Spotlight that focuses on indie games for Nintendo Switch. But I'm a day one Gray Switch owner, so it's not as if I don't have a lot of love for Nintendo or the Switch. This is just I'm more thoughts as a parent, and to give people the information of what's out there since they may not know. I'm in a house where we have four Switches. Um, uh, Both of my teenage daughters have them. I obviously have one, and then we have a family one actually. Um, but just that background to explain sort of the thought process that got me to where I am. And just I'm not some random person who knows very little. I'm a big Switch fan. Um, but as much of a Switch fan as I am, I'm not going to get a Switch OLED until I have to replace mine. Like if mine dies, I'll get a Switch OLED. But I looked at it, and I don't have a reason to upgrade right at the moment, which surprised me. But that's why I'm sort of sharing about this. Just first, the strengths of the Switch OLED model. Obviously, newer is always sexier. That's it's especially if you're talking to your kids, if you're a parent and they want the new hotness. Um, that is a tough sell. If it's no, I know better. Um, I'm with you, but just let's get to what your alternatives are and how you can actually make the games they play a little bit better, just without necessarily spending that price tag on the new sexiness. Um, the OLED screen absolutely does look far more vibrant, and your games, if you're playing portably, um, do really look incredible. There's not a question there. And the viewing area is slightly bigger, though not it's marginal. Really, it's the vibrancy that you're buying. The dock itself does have a integrated LAN port, which depending on how technical you are and how much online gaming that you may do or your kids may do, um, it could be a consideration if your Switch isn't right next to your Wi-Fi. The connection speed and reliability could warrant it, though there are other solutions for addressing the LAN port with a USB plug-in, which is what I've used forever. And those work fine too, but it is nice having it integrated. And then the last one really is that the kickstand that it has, versus the cheap little plastic piece that falls off and doesn't leave your Switch very stable and only lets you have your Switch at one angle. That's not really ideal. Never was. But if playing on a tabletop is something that you find yourself or them doing quite a bit, it's not very adequate. And the Switch LED, they have improved that, which is nice. So as far as the weaknesses, um, for people like me, I play primarily docked because I'm usually capturing gameplay, etc., and playing at my desk. But for people who play it docked, you've immediately lost pretty much everything that's a benefit about the Switch LED. Um, the LAN port being possibly the only exception. But like I said, you could buy a USB LAN port for it just fine, and it'll work just fine. So it's not a necessity. Um, the other weakness is you're reliant on the Joy-Con. The Joy-Con themselves, um, I've never found them terribly comfortable. I don't have particularly huge hands by any means, but it, the shallow joysticks and the particularly probably the small buttons. After a while, I sort of get fatigued trying to use the Joy-Con. I just don't find them very comfortable. Um, yeah, I'm a pro controller guy all the way, which we'll get to. Um, but the other problem with the Joy-Con is the fact that since Nintendo isn't emphasizing that they've finally taken care of the drift degradation problem, the infamous Joy-Con drift, since they haven't made it crystal clear that they've absolutely solved that problem, I'm assuming that even if they last longer without having the issue than the current ones, that it's still going to potentially be an issue for everybody, which kind of sucks. And also, your new investment, the Joy-Con, maybe you get a year, 2 years, depending on how much you take it on the go, how much you beat it up. But even if you treat it very well, like my Joy-Con, they took, I don't know, maybe a year and a half before they went funny, and that was me being a primarily docked user. So I didn't even use it very much. I didn't prefer to use them, but the Joy-Con drift was real. Had to send both in. They corrected it. They were better for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, maybe 9 months. But then the issue sort of snuck its way back in regardless. So again, that's a real problem that I don't think it seems like they've fully addressed. I know that it wasn't just day one switches, that later system models or the Animal Crossing edition, etc., that people continue to have the problem. Again, perhaps it took longer for the problem to set in, but it is a real problem that hasn't been addressed. Um, Obviously, another weakness is the cost if you don't absolutely need a new system. And then the other issue that we're already seeing some signs of is potential issues with its availability, scarcity, and then the scalper market, which is just lovely. Um, so getting one this holiday season might be a challenge for a number of reasons. On top of even if you're willing to set aside the money. So, getting to potential solutions and alternatives. Specifically, if you're concerned with tabletop play, um, this solution is really only concerned with that. But there is a product that you can buy. They're called Switchblades. It's a very attractive slash more elegant solution to the problem of the angle. You It is nice because you take off the Joy-Con, these go onto the rails. So in theory, these protect the rails on top of allowing you to switch to any angle you want. These are on the side, and you can pull them in and out. So you can get to just about any angle you want. It's nice and stable because it's covered on both ends of the system. Well, yeah, you have to get them both the same angle before you can make them stable. But yeah, that's they're a nice potential solution. Um, Moving on to what I consider the better solution. Actually, in this, you can actually use this to hold up your system, though it's not as stable if you want to play tabletop. But this is a product called this Fixture S1. It's basically something that clamps around a Pro controller, and then it has a method of holding your screen in place. Then you can you can angle this however you like. You can get it to a high angle. You can get it to shallow. Just I have to one-handed. This is not as easy. So you can go really high, that kind of thing. So some information about it. It is reliant on having a Pro controller. If you don't already have a Switch Pro controller, I highly recommend one. Absolutely, one of the most comfortable controllers out there. I've had a day one. I got a second one as a gift. They're extremely reliable. They hold their charge very well. That's a problem I've had with some of the third-party controllers. It's weird. Like, you haven't used it, but after a week and a half, 2 weeks, they'll be completely out of charge. I'm not really sure why, but I've had that with multiple third-party controllers. But the Pro controller seems to reliably hold the charge as well, which is nice. People have lamented the D-pad is not great. That I agree with, but I don't know. You can live with it, but it's not the best. But this isn't really about the Pro controller. But the Pro controller is just part of this as a solution. So the Fixture S1. So getting into how it is an alternative, in terms of it isn't going to make the screen any more vibrant. Obviously, it's not magic. But what it does do, it helps address how small the normal system can feel when you're playing it handheld, because since it's on this setup, it really does bring the screen quite a bit closer to your face, because you're going to be holding the Pro controller down here, and this is going to move it a couple inches closer to your face. So effectively it's the same size screen, but it gets it closer to you for viewing, so it does actually feel like it's a bigger screen. It's a nice side effect. Obviously, if you're using a Pro controller for playing, there really isn't a comparison using the Pro controller versus the Joy-Con. This is a full-fledged controller. It's got a full-fledged analog stick. The buttons aren't the tiny little buttons that are on the Joy-Con. It's just more comfortable in general. I would say, even though this is it's molded plastic, it's really well made. Even as much as I've popped my Pro controller in and out of it, over the, I don't know, probably year and a half or so that I've had it, no signs of it being an issue. It continues to work fine. Like, you could be concerned about how this grips on. It really does pop on and pop off, but haven't had any problems with that at all. So it seems to be like it's a well-made solution that's not gonna degrade quickly. One downside I will be clear about is there is potentially a weight issue. Depending on how long you're playing and how strong your wrists are, I suppose. It is a bit heavy because you're combining all the weight of all of these things, and it tends to be a bit top heavy. It really wants to sort of rotate away from you. Though I guess depending on how you balance, how you find a balance in where you position your screen and the angle of that, you'd sort of counter that. But where I find it to be most effective for playing, it tends to feel like it wants to rotate away from me. But that's addressable. It's not the end of the world. But if you have any disability or some sort of issue with strength in your wrists specifically, or I guess in your arms, it may be uncomfortable. Though if you play sort of on a surface, if you play with your arms resting on a surface, that is a way to sort of get around that. Still, it just that's not quite as ideal, but it is something you can address. Another thing that's nice with this, and this is something that I got a little while ago, is there's a nice S1 case, which is molded, and it will, so you can just sort of plunk this in, and it'll protect the Pro controller. Is actually a benefit I used to hate traveling with my Pro controller because I really didn't have anything ideal to put it in. So it would tend to get the buttons pushed. Sometimes it would turn on my Switch, kind of annoying. But obviously, this, you can close this up. On top of that, it's got an area that you can put your peripherals and stuff like that. It has, I can't see it probably so well in this light, but it has places for some cartridges as well. But this, it's nice and it's nice and firm. It protects it. That is a great sort of way to put the cherry on top for if you're going this route with using a fixture. It has a full-fledged solution, and this obviously is getting all the above. Perhaps if you have to add the Pro controller in, it starts getting pricier, but just the cost of the fixture S1 and even the case, we're talking a lot less money obviously than having to invest in getting a new Switch OLED. I'm sure GameStop trade-in on your current Switch is not great because I'm sure it's a buyer's market, so they're loving this. But even if you're trading in, this probably isn't so bad. So that's sort of the end of my thoughts. I just wanted to, if people weren't already aware that these two alternatives were out there, I just wanted to be sure that people had them in mind as you contemplate what you're going to do this holiday season, or just what you're going to do in general. And if you went down this route and got the S1, maybe instead of getting the new Switch to sweeten the deal, they are able to get quite a few games that they wouldn't have already had, like Metroid Dread, or maybe even you could get a set of Bluetooth headphones or earbuds that now take advantage of the fact that either Switch, any Switch, it isn't just the Switch OLED, but you finally are able to use your Bluetooth audio peripherals with the Switch, which is, that's a nice boon as well. So that's another way you could, invest the money you otherwise would have spent in just getting a newer, sexier Switch. Hopefully that information is helpful, or the insight is helpful. And if you ever want any information on indie games, you know where to come. Nindie Spotlight. This is Justin Nation, and I'll talk to you all later.